Welcome to the Jiu-Jitsu Oracle's first video focusing on the new cycle of the ADCC, which kicks off with the 2025 European Trials happening in Poland on Saturday. On this Jiu-Jitsu Oracle, me, Ross, and him, Calum, we're going to chat about the ADCC in general, where it stands right now, and give you our top picks to watch out for in the Euro Trials. So first off, Calum, ADCC, we're now seeing a different organisation. I believe Mo Jassim has stepped away from organising the elite side of the organisation. I think he's still involved with some of the events, from what I can gather. But it's a different group of people at the top who are maybe steering the ship. I don't know who they are, but seems like most step back from that. And then we already know that the ADCC finals in 2026 will be going to Poland, coming out of America, where the last couple have been. So it feels a little bit different. And another thing, and I'm wary of how long I've talked here. Another thing that feels a little bit different is last time around we had the whole CJI v ADCC thing. This time around seems like CJI and ADCC and all the athletes involved with those promotions are all cool and they're all going to be behind each other. And now we even see CJI on Flow Grappling, and Flow Grappling's being the home at ADCC. So I think we're going to really see a concerted effort from the jiu-jitsu community to make this ADCC cycle as big as it possibly can be. But I've said my bit. Calum, let's bring you in. Let me know what you think about the ADCC as it stands right now and what we're getting going forward.
Yeah, it's nice to have the new cycle of ADCC kicking off, the week after CGI. I've got more stuff to look forward to. I think maybe there's a little bit less people in these trials than there would have been had there not been CGI, just because of injuries and, being in close proximity to each other. But I hope that, a lot of athletes are able to do this ADCC, even if they're tied up in other contracts with ONE and the UFC. So hopefully we get the best athletes possible and we get another big scale event next year like we got this year with CGI.
And I think along the way, the trials events are going to be awesome. And we can already see some matches that we're really looking forward to seeing in this first European trials. I think coming so close to the to CGI 2 means two things. One, maybe there are some athletes not competing. For example, Taylor Pierman, for example, I haven't seen on the list of athletes just because it's come up too close. But on the other hand, as a fan, we're keeping the momentum going. To me, CGI 2 ends one chapter. We've had IBJJF Worlds, we've had CGI 2. This Euro Trials now feels like the kickoff of the new season, and then in the IBJJF, their season really kicks off in January with the Euros. So it just feels like we've had a conclusion of a lot of stories, and then now we're going to be starting some new ones. So Calum, let's talk about these trials that we're getting on Saturday. My ambition in this pod is ambition sounds quite lofty. All I want to do in this pod is highlight some guys that I think are really in contention to win divisions, and then talk about a couple of other guys we think might be able to go all the way if it's their day. How does that sound?
Sounds good.
Should we do it in weight class order?
Yeah.
Okay. Which side do you want to start at? Lighter or heavier?
Let's start lighter.
Okay. Under 66 male. Who do you have favoured to win this bracket?
Yeah, so relatively underpowered division compared to normal. Might see some new guys coming through and doing really well, but don't see Owen Jones on here. Maybe he would expect an invite, getting fourth place last time. Also don't see Ashley Williams on here. I'm not sure exactly why that is, but I think of the guys on the list, Yuji Haney has probably got the best odds of doing pretty well from what I can see. Some other names that could do well, like Marcus Phelan, other ones dotted here or there, but I think Yuji Haney is the top guy in the division to look out for.
I agree on that. I think Ash has just gone through creating a new gym, from what I can see online. So maybe his time is being involved with that and he's not focused on this trials. Maybe we'll see him the second time around. A couple of other names that flashed up to me, and we're not going to go too deep into like other names because there's loads of names we recognize across all the divisions and we don't want to just name check. But Hijat Rashid, was he the guy that submitted Gabriel Souza at AIGA?
Yeah.
So I think he's one to watch, definitely. And from a young up-and-comer perspective, and then one from like more of an OG perspective to maybe look out for is Camille Wilk, who is friends and what would you say, the co-coach of the leg lock camps with McTavish Szynski. So I think watch out for them. But yeah, I think Yuji Haney is my favourite as well.
Yep.
Okay, good. Under 77, the aforementioned McTavish Szynski is not taking part, from what I can gather. He originally signed up in the hope that a bicep injury, where I think he underwent surgery, would have recovered in time for him to do it. I think right before the event, he's decided, no, I'm not going to do this one. To me, that opens up the bracket a little bit, because I had Mateus favoured to win. So, Calum, who else now is in contention to take this title?
I think the two biggest names are going to be representing the same team. I would say Oliver Taza and Davis Asari are probably the two most likely to win the division. See some other names, like Jed Hugh and that could do quite well, but I think, skill set wise and where they're at just now, that Oliver Taza and Davis could probably do the best as far as winning the division.
Now, in trials, do they have to face relatively early on being teammates?
Yeah, I can't remember. I remember there being maybe some rule change about that. Since obviously it is the rules in the World Championships that they have to face second round of the latest, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's worth. I can't see it right now. Worth reconsulting the bracket just to see where they lie in it, but we're saying probably the winner of Davis and Taza would be our favourite wherever they meet along the way. I like Tom Marnham. Estonian grapplers, I think he's one to watch. But I think those two Kingsway grapplers are deservedly our favourites for this bracket. So under 88, which is a really interesting bracket. Shout out Kev McAloon, fellow SBG member, really good competitor, previous entrant in the trials, been messaging him back and forward, and Kev was telling me under 88's the bracket that I think it's fair to say he was most looking forward to seeing loads of interesting names in there. That all said, I think given his usual performance in trials, Santeri Lilius is the man to beat. Although we have Pavel Jaworski in this division as well, and his recent form has been really, really good. So I'm suggesting it's between those two. What do you think?
Yeah, I think those two are a good shout, but I think, Faris has had a very close match with Pavel in the past, and that was on Polaris, under ADCC rules, which favours takedowns a little bit more. Could definitely see Faris getting past Pavel. Santeri might be a tougher matchup for him. We've not really seen those two match up, but I think Faris is worth mentioning with those guys as well.
Okay, you're mentioning Faris as an extra guy. I'm going to mention Tarek Hopstock. Always love seeing Tarek compete. To me, Tarek's a guy who's like gone really deep in competitions a lot of time and then ran into someone like Tommy Langacker, who's, just been able to win the matches that they face with each other. But I think, never rule out Tarek. And I think one of these days, Tarek has potential to go all the way. Just seems that like he's been able to get to like quarters and semis and then run into a hurdle that he can't quite get over. But be interesting to see how this bracket shakes out. And yeah, like Faris, interesting if he goes up against Santeri. Like that would be one battle on the feet. Like Santeri normally wins matches that way, but like maybe Faris can stand up to that. What do you think? Yeah. Okay.
I would sway towards Terry, but I think Faris is more of an unstoppable force, and Centauri is more of an immovable object as far as their like physical capabilities. Faris is very explosive, can run people down on takedowns, and then Centauri seems very difficult to move around himself, so that could make it an interesting match. But experience-wise, at that kind of competition, have to go with Centauri.
Yeah, I agree. But I think it could be an interesting battle later on. Maybe out of those four guys I mentioned, that it's, if Tarek goes up against Jaworski and there's leg entries and Faris goes up against Santeri and there's wrestling, that could be interesting. But any of those guys facing each other make for interesting styles clashes outside of that. So, under 99, I think the overwhelming favourites for this will be Marcin Maklovich. I always get that wrong. If any Polish watchers can help me pronounce his surname a bit better, that'd be appreciated.
I think Machulovic is what I heard.
Machulovic. I think you've got it a lot closer than I did. Marcin Machulovic. Well, I'll go for that. I think I'm on safer ground here. Declan Moody. Did I pronounce that right?
I think so, yeah.
Do you think Marcin and Declan are the favourites in this weight class?
Definitely. There are some other names I recognise, but like the other names I recognise are more so I recognise because, they're UK guys or just like known in the more local scene. But yeah, the two biggest names by far is Marcin and Declan, both coming out of CGI, both look pretty good there. So I think it is likely going to be between those two, and I'd have to sway probably 65-70% towards Declan. One, given the rule set, obviously ADCC favours wrestling a little bit. I think Declan looked really, really good at the past CGI, and he's used to dealing with leg lockers. He knows that kind of game, and his passing looked unbelievable at the weekend. So I would sway towards Declan winning the division.
Okay. And then plus 99, we have our friend Martin Queen. In the first round, he has Heikki Jessala. Both are previous trials winners. I say the first round. It's the first round of this bracket. I think it's actually technically a quarterfinal or something like that, because there's less grapplers in this division. But in the first phase where guys are going to face each other in this division, they've put Hickey against Mark. What do you think about that?
I don't think that makes a lot of sense. I think Francis Pana is like the other top guy in this division, but I don't think he's not won trials, has he?
The last time I saw Franco Pana was just when he was battling Mark in what turned out to be a very close match in the trials that Mark won. But yeah, I'd say he's definitely a contender.
So Mark and Heikki are the only guys that have won trials, and they've got each other first round, so I don't think that makes a lot of sense. I don't know what it is, but there was talks in CGI from Gordon about the brackets being rigged with Atos and New Wave on the same side. But remembering back the last ADCC European trials, you had Oliver Taza on one side of the 77 bracket, and then you had Joseph Chen, Tommy Langacher, and Matej Szynski on the other side. So I don't know if there's something up with the guy that makes the European trials brackets. He's maybe not that switched on to who should be where or what's going on, but it doesn't really seem to make sense having those two going against each other first round.
And that was the last time I consulted the bracket. That was the match. I don't know if it changes or whatever, but we're just going with what we saw prior to recording this pod. But it is a unusual situation to have what I would say are the two biggest hitters in that bracket going against each other early doors. Makes for an interesting situation because I would argue for those two guys, like their biggest hurdle is the opponent that they're going to face first. Is it better to get them first and get that hurdle overcome, or is it better to get them in a final? Is it better to get them in the earlier rounds where, like they're not going to have as long an overtime and stuff like that, right? It would be longer in the finals usually.
Yeah.
So who does that favour? We'll find out. I'll tell you what, for the fans, seeing these two lock horns early doors in that division will be good. Obviously, being our friend, we're rooting for Mark. Hope he gets it done. But it's a tough one. And then maybe the beneficiary of that situation will be Franco Pana, who, like, while these two guys have to face each other early, Heike and Mark, don't sleep on Franco. And, like, maybe he is the beneficiary of those two having, like, a really tough battle first round and taking one of each other out, you know? Yeah. Okay. Women's brackets are found really challenging to pick winners for. Perhaps that's my ignorance. Perhaps it's because there's no big hitters in the divisions. Perhaps it's a combination of both. Like the only previous trials winner I recognized was in the over 65 bracket. I'm going to butcher this name as well, but I think it's Elefthera Christodoulou from Cyprus. I remember her winning a trials. But outside of that, I can't really say that I recognized too many of the grapplers. So from one perspective, it doesn't make for a great segment on this podcast. On another perspective, I'll learn something by watching the trials and maybe see some people that like I didn't previously know. And they'll now be on the radar of me and the Jiu-Jitsu Oracle going forward. Have you got anything to add on that, Calum?
Yeah, no, I'm the same. There's nobody really jumps out from any of the divisions, so we'll just have to see how it plays out.
Okay, good. And yeah, loads of other stuff happening in the scene. We have a Polaris coming up in the UK, Polaris squads. We have Tairu Tolo fighting MMA in 1FC. And we have these ADCC Euro Trials. So plenty to get excited about in the world of competitive grappling as Calum tries his best to hold in a yawn. So like, subscribe, follow, tell your friends, jump into the comments, get involved. Let us know what you think about the Euro Trials and anything else you're looking forward to. And the Jiu-Jitsu Oracle will be back with more coverage of the scene in the very near future.